The Mitchells versus the Machines. How long has it been since you've been on a road trip? Probably a while, given the time of this movie's release. Well, if you're excited to get back on the road and see some incredible sights, then Gravity Falls writer Mike Rianda and the team at Sony Pictures Animation planned quite a ride for you. But as a big-name animated feature, this isn't just any regular cross-country trip. They're putting you right in the middle of a robot apocalypse. Guess that's a way to make this trip stand out from the rest. However, there is a sense of irony with what Sony did with this movie. Despite this being about hitting the road and detaching yourself from your devices, instead of doing exactly that to watch this on the big screen, Sony decided to put this up on Netflix, where you gotta turn back on your devices and most likely watch it in the comfort of your own home. Hey, I didn't say that they did a bad thing here. It is perfectly understandable why they did so. I'm just pointing out the irony. But now that technology has turned against the Mitchells and even the entire world, will this turn out to be a road trip that no one will ever forget? Or is it best to let it all burn and welcome our new robot overlords? Let's find out. The story. The concept of the movie is quite simple. A road trip comedy where a dysfunctional family is stuck together in a car and a few quirky locations for days while in the middle of a robot apocalypse. Think a Goofy movie meets Terminator. A Goofy Terminator movie? Anyways, as a family road trip feature, the biggest issue with the film is that the story is very dependent on tropes of the typical family road trip feature, filling their drives and stops with quirky comedy and the heart to push towards family values and making things work amongst loved ones, even if they don't see each other eye to eye. However, the story often uses those same old cliches to advance the plot, presenting the same kind of relationship updates for Rick and Katie that would go up and down and highlight the times when they bond and lose their trust. This unfortunately makes the movie predictable, and even with the flashy robot action, it doesn't do a good job to hide its surprises, especially when this is the kind of film that doesn't value subtlety.
We set up a slip and slide in the dorms. It's amazing. This is the best day of my life. I'm making lifelong bonds.
I'm missing everything.
So right out of the gate, the picture offers a pretty weak concept. It would require a great amount of effort to make things up with its execution. And yet, with all of its dysfunctions, it found a way to make it work. Yes, the family angle on paper is quite tiresome, but the story does manage to pull it off by making the family dynamic feel genuine, giving the Mitchells a sense of relatability with the way they connect with each other and in the ways that they don't. There is an obvious cultural gap between each person, but all or most share that heart to want to make things work with each other. In a way, the movie understands the meaning of family, and that is what makes the heart of the picture successful to have viewers see themselves in the movie as family members and want to see the Mitchells pull through, even in a crazy situation like a mechanical uprising.
The Mitchells have always been weird.
No time to wash your hands.
Don't worry, I never do.
That's what makes us great.
That's my girl.
But that is only the human side of the feature. The robot apocalypse actually adds not just an action-packed layer to keep the feature fast-paced and quickly grab audiences' attention to what's happening, but also a commentary regarding society's dependence on technology and how it would be so easy for machines to turn against us and take us down, especially when we consume from only a handful of corporations that know everything about us. Kind of ironic coming from a movie by a company like Sony. But if there is one thing I would say is quite surprising about the movie, it's honestly the humor. I'll say this right now, this is the funniest Sony animation movie yet, where it does supply a large amount of gags every minute, and they actually work to get a good genuine laugh, especially with Monchi being his potato dog self. Seriously, even for me, I was alarmed to find myself laughing out loud this much at a movie. I can't even remember the last time I did so. Conceptually, this is a pretty weak idea, and even the story is mostly cliched and predictable. But in practice, they certainly made the most to make this road trip a fun and hilarious journey. The animation. Like any production, the process of the animation begins with concept art to understand what the movie would eventually look like, creating artwork digitally or even by hand in order to capture the look of the big picture. However, the team of this film probably loved the work they've initially made so much that they wanted to find a way to translate exactly that onto the final film. Luckily though, technology has advanced enough to allow the animators to create CG visuals that could take the exact look from their conceptual artwork and bring them to life. As a humans versus machines type movie, there are two different styles that clash against each other to visually present the battle between the two. The human style has a painterly feel to the designs, where the textures are more prominent to show how both the characters and the background seem like they were handmade and more natural, kind of emphasizing that a person crafted that. Also, for the humans themselves, Sony used the same technology they did for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse to give them a mock 2D look that is more polished and emphasize that they are drawn to life instead of being 3D figures that must work with real-world physics like the lighting, allowing the designs to pop out more on their own and make them feel more like legitimate cartoons.
Why do you need all that to take me to the airport?
I canceled your plane ticket to college. We are going to drive you to school on a cross-country road trip as a family.
As for the mechanical side, they stay truer to the traditional format of crafting CGI. The robots have a sleek and modern design to reflect on their look of today's technology, and they keep everything simple down to just having basic shapes and using a very limited color palette to craft their environment like the PAL headquarters and the mechanical beings like PAL herself and her army of robots.
Attention all robots. Capture every single person on the planet.
And as the two battle each other out, they result in several action scenes that are the visual highlights of the picture, where these opposite styles clash in fast-paced and gripping fights that bring out a lot of creativity that takes advantage of the backgrounds that are around them, even showing how one side can be out of place from where they are, and make the most out of the character animation to help the comedy stand out more, playing around with the personalities in a more down-to-earth style, but very expressive to sell the mood and the gag. There are also some instances where some 2D effects pop in whenever Katie gets more focus in the scenes. Now, I get what it's trying to do. It wants to present the feature in Katie's point of view as if it was one of her homemade movies with little gimmicky effects to emphasize how she feels in the moment. At first, it is a clever concept and pretty cute to give the picture more variety in its animation. However, it just keeps on doing it throughout the film. Yeah, they can be fun, but eventually they do overstay their welcome and they end up feeling more annoying because of how these effects briefly stop the narrative just to show off their novelty for the sake of an out-of-place gag. But then again, that is more of a storytelling issue. I won't fault the visuals on that. With two different styles fighting in an apocalyptic battle, the animation supplies the best visual representation of the natural versus the mechanical. The characters. Love them or hate them, when you're out on a family road trip, you're stuck with the family for the whole thing, so you better get used to them. In the case of the Mitchells, while completely dysfunctional, there is a charm to them where they feel like an actual family, and how their issues are no different to the ones that regular families occasionally face. First, there is Katie, the main character of the picture that is an aspiring filmmaker ready to go to her dream college. However, considering her relationship with her family, she's kind of the least likable Mitchell, primarily on how she is the most self-centered in the way that part of why she's so excited to go to college is to never see her family again, and that sentiment still remains for a good portion of the feature. Yes, she does gradually grow a fondness to them, but it still doesn't change how the times when she has to be selfish for plot convenience end up leaving a bad taste about her, regardless of how much of a quirky filmmaker she is.
Smile.
You know, you could experience things a whole lot better without that camera.
Dad, this is how I experience things.
I don't think...
As for the other Mitchells, there's Aaron, the younger brother with an obsession with dinosaurs and traded all of his social skills to fit more dinosaur facts in his brain, Linda, the mother who used optimism to keep the bond of the family together, Eric and Deborah Bot 5000, who are the defunct robot comic reliefs that tag along with the Mitchells to aid them, and Rick, the father of the family that has absolutely no clue about Katie's passion and is the most against common technology. However, even with his complete disconnect, no pun intended, with what Katie is doing, she is still the most important thing in his life, and that's what makes him such a likable character and a great dad. He would do anything to keep that bond with his daughter, even to the point of trying things that he has no idea of doing and having most of his plans fail. Yes, he screws up, like a lot, but you could tell that his heart is in the right place by putting an effort in everything he does.
Katie used to be my little buddy. We'd go on nature hikes and skip rocks.
And then there is Pal, who serves as a pretty solid villain. Originally programmed as an Alexa or a Siri-like assistant, she vowed revenge on the human race for being treated like trash when a new version of Pal was introduced. While still a bit of the typical mechanical overlord, Olivia Colman's performance does very well in presenting her as a short-tempered villain whose internet-wide intelligence is what makes her a powerful foe against the human race, capable of outsmarting anyone to achieve her goal of a robot-dominated Earth. Like a real family, they can have their problems and sometimes they can be frustrating. But there is some true heart that can be found in the characters, and that's what makes part of the trip a fun-filled adventure. Who knew that a robot apocalypse can be so enjoyable? The Mitchells vs. the Machines is the definitive example of an animated feature that is fun for the whole family. At first, it may seem like a weak concept with a predictable family road trip story, but thanks to its great execution with its heartfelt message about family, the clever commentary on modern technology, the engagingly creative animation, relatable characters, and incredible comedy, it turned out to be a trip that is filled with a lot of heart and a lot of laughs. I honestly think it's worth checking out in case you're in the mood for something funny and energetic. But my recommendation is that if you're with your family and if they're ever in the mood of watching an animated movie together, this could be a solid pick to bring everyone closer together. They say that it's not about the destination, it's the journey. And I could say that I had a pretty good time with watching this journey.
So we just do that, right?